Hey, I'm alive, man. See, what are you wagging your tail for? You having a dream? It's a good dream? You had a lot of fun. You were out with Luna and uh, that other little dog whose name I don't know. With the woman with the good tits and a great ass. Yeah. Okay. All right. So here we sit. The big story. There isn't really a big story today. It's a repeat story that happens with a lot of presidents, both Democrat and Republican. Uh, for some reason, they don't always think everything through, or they don't look for a way to end certain things. They don't want them to end. I don't know, or they figure it'll be somebody else's problem. Depending where they are in their administration, it would be somebody else's problem. But the Republicans are notorious for this. Uh, Bush and now what's his face? They don't know how to get out of the situations they're in. They don't know how to end the situation. They go in with the idea they want total victory, and all they'll accept. But now they can't get total victory. They suddenly realize that without going in and destroying completely destroying a country with nukes and everything else, they're not going to get total victory. All right, these people don't surrender that way. So what do? They sit back and go, you know what I mean? They don't have any idea what to do. You should, especially when it's a war, and especially one that isn't necessarily an emergency situation that has to be done today, that you have time to think it out. You should have a way out of it. And once it starts, you should start planning on what you're going to do when it ends or how to end it if it doesn't end the way you want it to. And, uh, Japan didn't know how they were going to end the war. The United States was going to, thought they were going to have to drop a whole lot of other bombs. And all of a sudden, somebody got smart over in Japan and they ended the war. Now, those two losing countries, Japan and Germany in World War II, turned around and became two of the most productive countries in the world. You know, Germany still has a Nazi problem, but not as bad. Not I don't think their problem is as bad as ours. The United States is a huge Nazi problem, white supremacist problem, whatever you want to call it, racist problem. To the point that there's probably going to be some sort of major racial confrontation. And, you know, I had my share of problems up. I came out of off of Long Island where I had no black students in my classes. I had a Filipino neighbor. That was the closest I came to seeing somebody black, you know, until I watched Willie Mays play baseball. And that was a whole other story, you know. But anyhow, I was like every other kid on the block. Our heroes were all white, you know. You didn't even know who Jesse Owens was or any of the other stuff that went on back then. And even though Jesse Owens was right before my time, been around for a long time, I didn't really realize the impact he had on the world until later on in life. And I started studying World War II history. I like history because you learn from it. You know, you can see where people make mistakes, especially in conflicts and wars. You realize that the only reason this particular battle was won is because some idiot made a mistake. Some person misjudged something, or some information wasn't delivered on time. And the battle was lost, or the battle was won, depending on whose side you're on. You know what I mean? So, in other words, they went in by mistakes. World War II wasn't a mistake. Victory was victory. It made the end of the war. It is said that that's quite possibly that war would have gone on for another 3 years and cost another 300,000 lives had they not dropped the bombs that they dropped. The second one wasn't even necessary. The first one did it, scared the shit out of the Japanese. When one plane could fly, when they had the United States had air superiority, can fly wherever they wanted to, and drop one bomb and kill what 300,000 people. Yeah, Japan didn't want any more of that shit. They lost 300,000 people in a fire in Tokyo when they dropped incendiaries. So, they knew what we were capable of if we had air superiority. And that, of course, decided that air superiority was the way to win any war. And now they're not worried so much about it. In today's wars, we're not even worried about human beings being lost in air superiority conflicts because we have drones, you know? But the situation there is you can outsmart a drone. You can, you don't have to have air superiority to win a war. Helps, makes it a hell of a lot easier, but it's not completely necessary. But I digress. Anyhow, so history is important to me. When I read stuff like this, and I look at what's going on, and I remember Desert Storm. Desert Storm. They went in. They had the Allies lined up. They had everything lined up before they pushed the go ahead button. They pushed the go. They had a great general in Schwarzkopf leading the charge over there. This particular adventure doesn't have a great general, or maybe it does, but he's not in command. Pete, I believe it's God's will. Hegseth is in charge. And of course, everything's all fucked up because his boss is Donald Trump. So, Lucy, you stop that. That's impolite. Hey, you, stop that. So, yeah, it's a different story. But we have no plan to get out of where we are. We didn't go in with a plan to get out of it because Trump thought Trump believed the people that were whispering in his ear that it'll be over in 24 hours. They won't be able to withstand the bombardments. They'll give up right away. They didn't give up right away. Pardon me. The bombardments weren't quite as 100% accurate as they thought they were going to be. And other countries didn't jump in and say, "Let's do this. Let's wipe out the Iranians." Because Iran wasn't at war with anybody else but us. They didn't. They tried to get along with other people, but also that part of the world, if you understand it, which most Americans don't, and I don't understand it 100%. It's still tribal. Okay, certain groups of people don't like certain groups of people, and they're not going to work together, and that's the end of it. Now, if you accept that, and if you can go along and give them, you can get along over there. But see, Trump wants like the countries that come into the aid of that he wants to come to the aid of America would have come to the aid of America if America hadn't already blown up a school, if America wasn't being non-discriminatory in its bombings. If they decided they were going to do a surgical strike, like they did the first Desert Storm, that was all surgical. That was all planned out. They went after certain units of the military and destroyed them. They didn't give them a chance to fight back. It's not the way it works. Uh, they massacred, I forget how many people in a convoy after they had surrendered, but in that war. So America is not to be trusted in how they fight wars and how they end wars. So countries that were around or had people who were in government that saw what did in Desert Storm and how that ended and everything, it didn't end exactly the way everybody thinks it reads about it in the history books. There were a lot of in that war too. And that's the thing that I understand. War is not a board game. War is not a nice situation. You very seldom, like they said, World War I pilots were very friendly with each other and everything, and they didn't do anything bad. Well, that was because there were a certain class of people that were allowed to fly, you know. But they're not even though there's still a certain class of people that fly basically that are combat pilots. They're not trained to be nice. They're not trained to be. It's not a gentleman's sport. See, flying was expensive back then. So if you were a hobbyist or something like that, if you were a pilot that was already trained, you were usually quite wealthy to a certain degree. So you could go into these. You had a different class of people, you know, and that's all different now. Uh, Trump and his almighty rich people are fighting against people that don't understand the value of a dollar. That don't care about it. Their whole outlook on life is we need to feed our families, and you don't want us to feed our families, and we want to be able to pray the way just like we did when we started the American Revolution. They want to pray the way they want to pray, and they don't want to be told that their God is a devil, or their religious leaders are scum or something like that, even though they might be. You know, uh, they don't want to hear about that. You know, so they when we go and do that, we're not winning the hearts and minds of the people. And I don't think that doesn't even enter into Trump's vocabulary, hearts and minds anymore. I mean, he just wants to, he wants them to surrender and do what he tells them to do. You know, bend over, kiss his ass. Personally, I like to bend over and shove a hot poker up his ass, but that's. I have a tendency to overreact at times. Who knows? So don't know what's going to happen over there. But the Hegseth and his modern military has the idea that war's a 20-minute thing, and it's not. It's months, days, human lives. It's just the way it's going. And the United States hasn't been affected by the killing as much as the Arab nations that are over there, the Arabs that are over there. So why are they still fighting? Well, there was a story about that, and somebody I talked to that came out of whoa, you hate it when you get an itch. That came out of where did he come out? Afghanistan. When he came back, he said the deal over there is if you kill somebody's father, even if it's especially if it's by accident, he wasn't meant to be shot. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Or even if he has a gun and you kill him, you create 100 martyrs. So every time you kill an Arab, you create more dislike and distrust and violence against you. So it's not a perfect win-win situation over there. That if you go in and you kill everybody, the war is going to be over and that's going to be it. They're going to be distant relatives that are going to come hunting you. You know. Supposedly, we still have people that are over there doing that for Bin Laden. There's still relatives of his running around thinking bad things. But you see, he was a Saudi Arabia. He was part of the elite in Saudi Arabia. He wasn't. They had disowned him, but he was related to some of the top princes or a top prince in Saudi Arabia. And nobody wants to talk about that. That Saudi Arabia had a great deal to do with 9/11, and nobody really wants to talk about that because there was a secret deal made years ago, and I don't know whether it was a Democrat or a Republican, and I'm not going to say, so I can't say that strictly this one did it or that one did it. That I don't know all of the details about it, but apparently there's some sort of deal between Saudi Arabia and the United States, and I don't have any idea what it is. That's why we train Saudi pilots for free. It's crazy, isn't it? All right, listen up. Pay attention. If you see any of my friends, Steve or any of the others out there, Jim, uh, Mapo, any of those guys, if you know any of them, uh, ask them what's going on. What did I do wrong? And, let me get back in your good graces again, guys. And I will talk to you. If you have a problem, I don't know where you can post it. Because I can probably, it's probably on my end. Those problems usually are on my end. I've been disconnected a couple of times because of power outages. That might have had something to do with it. So, anyhow, you guys take care. I'll be back tomorrow. There's no end to my bullshit. You know that, right? But I got to start seeing some action, or I don't know what I'm going to do because this is I have things I could be doing besides this. All right. So anyhow, you guys take care. I'll see you tomorrow.